Hey folks, Kozzi here for Pick 1 Pack 1 and Game 1 of our Combrei Force deck, which is probably just a Combrei Midrange deck. Very, very strong hand for us, probably about the best that we could hope for. We're going to be getting some early damage in with our District Infantry and doing our best to find the Shadow Sigils to be able to play our splashed creature. Unfortunately, this game came about because I was trying to set up the deck tech so I could take a screenshot for the YouTube video and press start game instead of pressing edit deck. And so that's the reason why we had to start the recording midway through the very opening of the game, and why I currently don't have a super for this match, so it will just be a one-off singleton match. But that's okay. I thought I'd rather show you guys the match than to play one match and come in with no result. Our opponent also looks as though they're on Combrei, but they haven't been drawing, or don't have an early curve like we do. So we're going to keep swinging in, and rather than playing the Combrei healer, I think we're going to be playing our Bright Mace Paladin and hoping to get some kind of equipment. My opponent playing a Desert Marshal could change my mind about the Combrei healer. He obviously thought it turned it back to a 1-1, which it doesn't. It's already had the pump, but next turn I think it goes back to a 1-1 and can't continue. I'll be very curious. I don't think I've actually seen that scenario before. Yeah, so it goes back to the 1-1. And so we could contemplate casting a Combrei healer on it to turn into a 1-4 to allow it to keep attacking. It would force the double block if he wants to block it out, but I feel as though, well no, even if I put it on the Bright Mace Paladin, it will become a 3-6, so yeah, that'll allow me to keep attacking it with my Paladin. Which I think is probably the best of my options. So now I'm probably going to be paying the cost of this aggressive splash, unless I find some way of finding my second Shadow Sigil. She's going to be a dead card in my hand along with the rest of my sigils. Ordinarily I don't hope to keep her in my opening hand, I hope to draw into her later in the game once I've established. But our early curve out was too good to ignore. He uses the dagger so that if I attack in, I'll be only trading off for the Desert Marshal, which is not a trade I'm interested in, so we'll sit back and wait. Once I get a Shadow Sigil, if he doesn't have effective removal, then it's not going to make a difference, those daggers. The Terrorzon represents a decent sized problem. Well, not really. We can actually double block here between both the Paladin and the Adventurer, and that'll still be a 1-for-1 trade on defense. If we triple block, he's likely to... His choices are basically to take both my Bright Mace and my 1-1. Or the 2-3. I feel as though I'm happy with that. Yeah, okay, you can be busy. I feel as though I'm happy with that because these will still hold back even his 4-4. I could get punished if he has a combat trick. But if he has a combat trick, I'm in real strife anyway. Well, speaking of being in real strife, this is it really. The Loyal Watchwing is not going to help much at all because it's so low powered to begin with. I think we're just going to have to accept the fact that we're going to be taking some damage from this Terrazon for quite some time and hope that we can start to build up some power. I don't want to be playing my Justice Sigils in case I do happen to get one of my creatures that cares about the lands coming into play. But I think this is all a relative moot point, especially with his Copper Conduit having Overwhelm. That represents 13. I can't have a profitable block, so I won't. And the Desert Marshal is interesting because it allows me to chump block and not take overwhelm damage. But if I do that, he's still going to be attacking very wide, so if I'm able to block both the Terrazon and the Conduit with those two trade off, I'll be taking 6-9 damage. If I block these and trade off 1, I'll be taking 7 and I'll be on 1. Yeah, I don't think there's too many other things that will help get me out of this. I feel as though he's just curved out whilst I've been stuck with dead cards. Sure. So that was a poor first match. I think we need to ask ourselves whether the splash is actually worth it. Getting to 2 is very, very tricky. However, I don't think that there's a lot of cards that I'd rather over it. If we were able to get her down early, then I think that would have gotten us well and truly into the game because he would have been on a lot of chump blocking duty. Indeed, even if we'd gotten to our 4th Tree Elder or some of our other cards at the top, that would have helped us a lot. No, I think it's okay. We'll see how our second game goes and go from there. This is a curious hand because it does very little early on. We do get to drop our Combrei Stranger, and we do have a good creature once we get to 5, which we're guaranteed to hit. And whilst we have the Monument that we'd play on 5, it's also the second 5 drop, so these will be happening on the same turns. That being said, we can be guaranteed to be given all of the factions that we want. So I think we'll give it a shot. So the first thing we need to do is make sure that we get to double Justice and double Time. I think the way we do that is if we play our Justice for a Seek Power getting a Time, that will then give us double from the Combrei, which we can then use the next Seek Power on turn 3 to get our second Shadow Sigil. And that way we get to keep our Amethyst Monument as well as be able to play all of our double cards. So drawing this Time Sigil there made a lot of my preparation redundant, but that's okay, I'd rather be prepared. Now all we need to do is stop drawing sigils. We have more than enough. I'll start playing my Shadow Sigils now, even though it gives away a little bit of information of what our deck look like. The reason why is because I do need to get to 2 Shadow by turn 5 if I do happen to draw my bomb. And so I don't want to take the risk of being distracted or missing out on the opportunity to play her on curve. There's just no reason to open myself to that kind of problem. So this is a little bit of the problem of me having a deck that has 2 5-drops in the opening hand. It's without something to do on the 4, I'm losing a lot of tempo right now. And one of these I won't be able to play until turn 7 because I'll likely be wanting to play my 4th Tree Elder. It looks like he's going all in on the single creature, which would be great if I had better removal than what I currently have in this deck. As it is, the 6/5 doesn't do anything to block, so there's no point in casting him. I think what I'd rather do is play my lifesteal creature, so that way at least I can keep stabilizing my life total whilst he smashes me for so many. And then plausibly, once we drop the 4th Tree Elder, we'll be able to stop that aggression. He attacks him for another 5 on what is the world's most suited up Dark Wisp. And I'll offer the trade. There's no way that I'd be that cavalier with that trade if I didn't know that I had something to follow it up with that could block. So with him playing so many cards on top of his Dark Wisp, I need to seriously think about chump blocking soon. I think I can afford to take the 7 right now, especially as I know he doesn't have any tricks, and then keep back my Combrei Stranger for next turn. I'll be able to attack him down to 15, representing 10 on the second turn. Yeah, I think that's my option right now. This will also help a lot because it allows me to either put it on my Terran Terrazon in 2 turns time, or to put it onto my 4th Tree Elder right now. I think I'd rather diversify my threats, so I'll work on the assumption that I need to chump block with the Combrei Stranger. The only thing that could punish me for that is if he has some kind of overwhelm ability, so if he has the Mace or if he has Rampage. That'll be putting it up to a 10, minus 2 is 8. But I think if he has that anyway, I'm in real trouble. I guess I could be playing around it by making that a 5/9, but then he goes up trades. I've 2 for 1 myself, he's got extra damage in, and I've got creatures who will just chump block out. So I feel as though I need to just play as though he hasn't got it. And I'll keep my sigils back in case I happen to draw a creature that wants it. So if he doesn't have a combat trick, this represents a trade block that I can make. He'd be doing 7 damage through on the 4th Tree Elder, and then just 1 to the Combrei Stranger, who would still be able to do his 2 back. So the fact that he's thinking so long, I think is a little bit encouraging for me. So we stay with the chump block plan. And we'll basically just have to hope that this is now enough. The fact that he used damage-based removal before is encouraging for us. Excuse me. It's something that he could have used for extra reach once he got damage through, so I think he would have valued it at a very high premium. And so unless he's top decked some kind of removal, I think that our creature should survive. And so even though we've drawn effectively little else other than sigils, we could be at the corner of turning this game. So this offers up a double block. Which I think if I take, I can't win from. Because I just have so little resources in my hand. It does open me to just being totally blown out if he manages to get his third Shadow Sigil, because then it will have Overwhelm as well as Deadly, and I'll be forced to block it anyway. But given that he hasn't drawn one yet, so it's really a case of how likely do I think I am to win if he draws a Shadow Sigil, and how likely do I think it is for him to actually draw it. I think we need to play around it and hope that we fade it, at least until we get more resources on the board. And now we're in real trouble. The mask is very, very interesting. So, I can give a unit +4/+4, and then I have 4 damage to attack with. I imagine the 4 damage goes in to the Dark Wisp. I could make this a 6/7 that then dies when it's blocked by the Steelbound Dragon, and this dies when it's blocked by the Champion of Chaos. Or I could make that an 11/12 that attacks in and dies thanks to the Champion of Chaos being deadly. I think my only option here is to attack with both. If he chooses to take the cheap block with a Steelbound Dragon, I can then attack and kill the Steelbound Dragon, keeping back my Towering Terrazon for whichever creature remains. I know that if he double blocks I'm in trouble, but I feel as though I'm going to die unless he makes a mistake regardless. And this way it allows me to live one more turn. And I go down to 5, and I die. How much that match can be attributed to me flooding out, I think is a reasonable question to ask. We just didn't get any resources to help us out beyond our initial hand, even though we were thinning our deck like crazy with 2 Seek Powers. We weren't able to deal with this quick draw creature, which gave him an amazing amount of value, whilst he then eventually had time to draw out of his Power Screw. I think overall what we're seeing is what happens when you try and force a deck rather than follow the leads. Yeah, I'm kind of glad that I've had the opportunity to get smashed with a deck like this, because I'm not a fan of just going in and forcing an archetype. I've seen it happen at my local card store a lot, and I was tempted on this occasion for the sake of having some diversity of videos, and I feel as though this is actually showing something that's quite useful. We had the opportunity to get quite a decent amount of shadow removal, but because we were so busy trying to go on a particular colour combination, we didn't get the chance to see any of it. And so instead now we're wholly reliant on being able to deal with our opponent's threats through creature efficiency. Alrighty, so my opponent Sunnyvale looks like a very competent player, based on them having a previous ranking of number 15 in the world. And the fact that they're playing a creature like Sanctuary Priest is not a mistake. This is a very defensive deck that they're trying to build, and so we need to be ready to get aggressive for it. We rely most on having double green, so I think that's what we need to chase, and then work out what to do with our other Seek Power later on, but that won't be until turn 4. I imagine this is going to represent at least 4 or 5 life for him by the time it's finished. We play our most potent creature. That has the opportunity to take over the game if he doesn't have a way of responding to it. And the reality is, if he's playing exclusively Combrei colours, he's going to be looking at either a Vanquish once it gets to 4 power or higher, or he's going to be looking at a Silence effect, or on having Predator's Instinct on a creature that's bigger than it, which is going to be quite a challenge. He could also have the Scorpion now. That's an uncommon, and I guess it's plausible to be worth playing around, but I think it's much less likely. So we're going to attack in and see what he has. He could also have the Silence creature. So I think my turn is going to be, I'm going to cast the Bright Mace Paladin this turn. Next turn that allows me to cast both Combrei Stranger, Seek Power, and Predator's Instinct should I choose, so that I can make sure I can cast a Shara on the next turn. Alternatively, I could have gotten aggressive and played my Combrei Stranger and then the Predator's Instinct to remove this life gain, but as he doesn't have a board quite yet, and given that I don't have much removal in my deck at all, I feel like that's way too aggressive a line. Alternatively, I could cast my Amber Acolyte and get my other Sigil and use my Predator's Instinct to remove the Horned Velunk right now. Yeah, I think I like the sound of that. Well, it's a choice of either playing a 2/2 and extending my board, as well as... Actually, you know what? This is effectively the same, except for I have a 2/2 on the table instead of a 2/1. We'll attack in before showing him what else we're going to do with our turn. And we're in quite a good position now, because this Awakened Student is going to keep getting bigger and bigger, causing more and more problems. And even if he's able to use his power efficiently, it's going to struggle to be on the same size. His double block could only kill it if he has a combat trick of some description. I'm happy with that trade, especially as I'm going to be playing a Shara this turn. That's fantastic news for us. The fact that he's just trying to off-tempo us suggests that he doesn't have a lot going as far as removal in his hand. And it could be that he's just seeing the wrong half of his deck for right now. If I attack in, I'll be choosing to trade my Combrei Stranger for the Priest if he chooses to block. It's a trade I'm happy to make. And I think we will cast it again. I don't need to show them anything else in my hand that they need to deal with. The one thing I should keep in mind is that this is the colour that has Harsh Rule. It is a rare, so you can't really play around it unless you're in a very dominant position, but that is the position that I'm in. So I don't think I'll be committing to the board anymore after this, unless there's something I absolutely need to deal with or get around. I think right now Sunnyvale's probably assessing if there's any way that they can get back into this game. They definitely have to block one of my 6s next turn if they don't have any extra creatures. In fact, they need to block both. So, if I play my Time Sigil, my student will become a 7/7, which means that they can't kill it even with a treble block. They don't have enough power to be able to kill Ashara. If I attack with a Combrei Stranger, it can block there and chump on both of those, so there's a likelihood of it dying. So if that's the case, I might as well keep it back and force the jump blocks. As I said, Harsh Rule is a card in this format, so I don't want to keep overcommitting. If they play another very strong creature, then that could be a sign for me. But as it currently stands, the question really is how do I lose this match rather than how do I win it? And the way I lose it is by getting blown out by a Wrath. On the opposite side, Sunnyvale now has to play an extra creature, because if they don't, I'll just have the overlap to do my extra 2 points of damage. So they're in a much more pressing situation. It's interesting how I feel as though this is probably one of the stronger decks I've played up against, but it's one of the slower decks, and to work out why this game went differently to the previous two, why I was able to actually get a win with it, I think a large part is because I have so little premium removal that on this instance having my Killer's Instinct allowed me to control the board rather than to respond to it, and so I was able to create my tempo rather than just respond to my opponents. And I think it shows quite aptly how important those pieces of removal are, or those combat tricks, so you can just shift the maths and have some element of surprise. If we could just put down our creatures one by one, it'd be exclusively on the power curve, and as it is, card games like this and card games like Magic, they intrinsically favour the defenders and you'll get to some kind of stalemate, and so you need that extra card, that extra push to break that stalemate. As it is, we're still not doing well with this Combrei build. I feel as though if I could get one, maybe two more wins, I'll be doing very, very well. I don't think there's much help for me. Like, we could consider a detain, but all that does is either stop him for a turn or give me a slightly favourable block, and it might well mean that I do need this Mithril Mace just to get into the deck, get into the game a bit more. I don't think we can afford to cut Ashara, even though she's as inconvenient and clunky as she is, just because she's so powerful, and in this deck that doesn't have a lot going. Power is exactly what we need. So join us next time. We'll take this deck through hopefully wins 2 and 3 and go from there. Alright, thanks for watching. See you around.